Hello, YouTube. The use of people with paranormal abilities, including psychics, is one of the most classified areas in the work of special services, both the Russian domestic ones and foreign ones. On the eve of the Chekist or Security Officers Day, which is celebrated on December 20th in the Russian Federation, Russian media outlet met with retired KGB General Nikolai Alexeyevich Sham. At one time, Major General Sham worked as a deputy head of the scientific and technical counterintelligence of the KGB of the USSR and knows the essence of the issue firsthand. 10 or so years ago, my colleague and co-author Philip Mantle in the United Kingdom published Sham's interview about Soviet UFO research and the KGB, and I translated it. By the way, Sham is also the KGB general who released 124 pages of the previously classified UFO files that have been collected in the Committee for State Security, as the KGB is properly named. You can only guess what has not been released, as we know now that the Soviet leader Yuri Andropov had a keen interest in UFOs and aliens. Now, this interview I'm about to present excerpts from is as of December of 2022. It's a very interesting, and we generally do not know why this is being discussed now. But please, as a reference, see the attached playlist of my research videos. You will see detailed information to the extent possible, as well as some different points of view from Sham's information. Now, in 1994, Fate magazine published my extensive research on the subject up to that date, and I had several other publications through the years in some now obscure or defunct publications. To preclude hype and speculations, please understand that I use only open source materials. They're out there, just getting information from them takes experience, but everything is out there. And what is not out there, I do not know, and other civilian researchers do not know as well. And we cannot know. So, how did the special services of the USSR and other countries use people with psychic abilities? How can such abilities be determined in a person? And can they be developed? Let's start. Question to the former general, Nikolai Alexeyevich: when did the Soviet secret services begin to show interest in psychics? There is a hypothesis that back in the early 1920s, Gleb Boki, the head of the secret political department of the ЧК of the USSR, as the KGB was known, resorted to the help of people with psychic abilities. Is it so? I can't say for sure about Boki, responded Sham. Perhaps he conducted some experiments in this area, but the Soviet special services began to show serious interest in this subject in the mid-60s of the last century. Extraordinary human abilities, for example, the ability to read other people's thoughts, opened enormous opportunities for the state security agencies and significantly facilitated their work. For example, a person who may be connected with foreign intelligence gets into the field of view, or field of vision, of counterintelligence agents. To identify his criminal activities, counterintelligence will have to do a lot of work for a long time to listen to his phone conversations, find out the range of his interests, study acquaintances and work colleagues. That's how scrupulously they collected information about GRU Colonel Pinkovsky, who offered his services to the British Intelligence Service, or about the diplomat Agorodnik recruited in Colombia by the CIA, and only then, having collected all the data, the counterintelligence could make a decision about the arrest. In general, this is a long, complex, and tedious process. Therefore, the special services of the USSR began to pay close attention to people who had unusual abilities. With their help, the process of collecting information was greatly simplified. Question: and how were these abilities revealed? When a person has unique abilities, he quickly becomes known, and not only in his immediate environment. Realizing that he has some unusual gift, a person begins to earn money from it. He treats people medically, solves their domestic and service problems, warns about events that may occur, and the task of counterintelligence is to attract such a person to work for the security of the state. Question: don't you want to say that people with psychic abilities could really influence the processes that took place in the world? Response from Sham: that's right. For example, on the eve of the events in Czechoslovakia in 1968, the secretary of the Central Committee of the Czechoslovak Communist Party, Bilčík, came to Moscow to tell Mikhail Andreevich Suslov about what was happening in the leadership of the Czechoslovak Socialist Republic. So, under the guise of Suslov's assistant, a KGB officer with psychic abilities operated to check Bilčík. His task was to understand where Bilčík was frank and where he was lying. Something similar happened in 1984, when it became necessary to replace the leader of Afghanistan, Babrak Karmal, with a more convenient leader for the USSR. They were also helped by people with paranormal abilities, employees of the first main directorate of the KGB of the USSR, who were able to influence Karmal's decision to resign and hand over his post to Najibullah with the help of hypnosis. And here's another example. The head of the security service of the president of the Russian Federation, Alexander Vasilievich Korzhakov, in the early 1990s, was seriously engaged in the search for and recruitment to the presidential security service of the Russian Federation people with paranormal abilities, and soon such a group was created in the security service of the president of the Russian Federation. It was led by Major General Georgy Georgievich Rogozin. This group of psychics worked actively in the 1990s and solved various tasks. In particular, the group gave recommendations to the head of state regarding a visit to a particular country. This is exactly what happened during the preparation of Boris Yeltsin's visit to Japan. The psychics clearly said that this visit was useless, that it would not be possible to conclude any serious agreements with Japan, and Yeltsin's trip to the land of the rising sun was cancelled. Question: and what was done by the specialists of this group to collect information about the plans of our opponents on the world stage? Sham responded that he knows of such a case. In the 1980s, two people clearly endowed with unusual abilities lived in Vinnitsa. Sometimes these people came to Moscow. Eyewitnesses told Soviet special services about their unique abilities. And then the KGB decided to attract the citizens to perform particularly important state tasks. Soon, contact was established with this couple, and it turned out that these two people really had unique abilities. They could instantly move in space through their biofield. This refers to energy field. And that's how I translate it into English. And to any point of the globe. Needless to say, what prospects opened for the Soviet intelligence. And they took advantage of this opportunity. So, on the instructions of the KGB, psychics from Vinnitsa were transferred to the office of the Prime Minister of England, Margaret Thatcher. They were present at all her conversations, meetings with cabinet ministers, and everything they saw and heard, they immediately reported to their superiors. It sounds incredible, but there really was such a story. Question. It turns out that sitting in a chair, say, in the office of their special services supervisor, this couple could observe the actions of the British leadership through their biofield. Sham responded, that's right. Imagine what amazing opportunities would open up to humanity if scientists learned how to control the biofield. You see, he and his colleagues have been working in this direction. In the Soviet years, an entire research program was even developed in which 20 scientific institutes were involved, and a special group was created in the KGB which prepared people for such work. For example, their specialists made a chair with a backrest into which a special device with measuring equipment was inserted. And when a person sitting down in a chair relaxed, this device turned on, after which the human body was activated and its bioenergetics increased significantly. In this state, a person could come into contact with anyone anywhere on our planet and receive the information they are interested in. These are the technologies that really existed. And in the early 1990s, as Sham had already said, this work was continued in the security service of the President of the Russian Federation. But alas, the psychic business has not received further development in his country. And then, when Korzhakov was removed from the security service, this matter was closed altogether, and a group of people with psychic abilities was dispersed. But in the United States, such work continued successfully. For example, with the help of psychics, American Special Services solved the tasks of identifying Soviet submarines off the coast of America. Question. And how carefully, in your opinion, did the then leadership of the KGB treat this work? And Sham responded, in general, the leadership of the KGB of the USSR did not care about their work at that time. They were primarily interested in their own positions. But he cannot say that their work was not approved at all either. His colleagues and he were doing very exotic things. Then, 30 years ago, it was all very interesting and exciting. Question. Is it true that Major General Rogozin, already mentioned above, possessed such abilities? They say that he made up Yeltsin's horoscopes and could lift objects from the table with his eyes. Shem responded, no, it's from the evil one. Explanation from me. In Russian, the expression is most often used in the sense that some thoughts or actions stem from some bad motives. That's what Sham referred to. Back to him. Another matter is Kustov, which he described above. Sham met him in 1985, and he was introduced to Sham as a person with psychic abilities. Kustov really could regulate his biofield. He discovered his ability in himself in the 1980s, developed it, and started doing business at it, treating people. However, Sham wants to draw attention to the following circumstance. If a person has such abilities, it does not mean that he can generate them everywhere. Energy, as a rule, is connected with the people around him, and the world is not perfect and not stable. Today, there's one weather, and tomorrow there's another. Today, we're at one, and tomorrow we're at a different distance from the sun. Today, we have one magnetic atmosphere, and tomorrow it will be a different one. Everything in this world is changeable, and man is in this changeable environment. There are so many subtleties here. Therefore, the possession of such abilities does not mean that a person will work with an absolute guarantee like an automation. Question. Is it possible to teach a person to work with his biofield? Response from Sham: you can. Sham was told that he has a very powerful biofield and it could be developed if desired. But he has never had such a desire, and here's why. Developing his biofield, his energy field, a person begins to know more about relatives, about close people, and information about this can be very diverse, including tragic. And how to live with it. However, everyone has their own opinion about this. Question: did you need special equipment to teach a person to develop their extraordinary abilities? Sham responded, he has already talked about a special chair, and there are also special massage systems. There's also a studying platform. What is it? A person enters a special platform, stands on it, and freezes, and his center of gravity moves. The equipment records all movements. They are displayed on the computer screen. And according to the deviations of this complex trajectory, it is possible to obtain information about the health status of this person. They even try to create diagnostic centers based on this platform. Question: how did psychics manifest themselves in the fight, for example, against nationalist and extremist movements at the turn of the 1980s, 1990s? After all, people who possessed psychic abilities could also detect the leaders of the terrorist underground, for example, in the North Caucasus. Shem responded, at one time, the Russian Ministry of Defense was engaged in this area. Even a laboratory was created that searched for people with paranormal abilities, invited them to work with this laboratory. But these were isolated cases. Such developments have not been widely spread. For example, he personally knew a group of specialists who were engaged in the use of weather management technologies. They even had equipment with which, being, for example, in Moscow, you can change the weather anywhere in the world. Do you think, Sham asked, there's a queue of those who want to develop these unique technologies? Nothing like that. No one needed it. The question to him then is why? Sham responds, because such technology affects or impacts the interest of a giant army of people, for example, firefighters. Imagine how many firefighters and rescuers that are in Russia today, and suddenly there is a technology that makes these people unnecessary. And this is just one example of those who want to develop these unique technologies. Nothing like that. No one needed it. So I will stop here. That's what Sham shared with his fellow countrymen. Like I said, the rest of the information through the years that I was able to collect, you can find in my playlist. And it's an interesting interview, that's all I can say. And how much is true, I don't want to get into this. I just wanted you to know what this former general of the KGB had to share. So thank you for your attention to my work. If you can support me, please do so. In the description, you will find to this video. Please subscribe to my channel. Please tell others. Please like my videos. Thank you.